We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to be?
Tunisia is once again in tumult as the killing of an opposition leader threatens to tear apart a society that was already dangerously fractured. Shukri Belaid was killed by as yet unidentified gunmen just days after yet another spirited public attack on a transitional government that he insisted was putting its religious principles before the interests of the nation as a whole. The future of the government remains uncertain, but it's this man who will now head the battle to maintain order and avert chaos. Moncef Marzouki became Tunisia's first elected president in December 2011. He'd returned from exile after the fall of the longtime dictator Zine El Abidine Ben Ali and pledged to continue fighting for the freedom of all. As a self-described activist and moderate, President Marzouki has been central in the attempts to reach consensus between his largely politically secular supporters and the dominant Ennahda movement founded on Islamic principles. He's cut short a foreign visit and has returned to Tunisia to deal with the current crisis. Just a few weeks ago, in an interview with Al Jazeera, he warned of forces that were intent on disrupting the peaceful movement to democracy and called on all to exercise patience and tolerance. Events of the past few days show that many prefer to ignore his warning and remain deaf to his call. President Moncef Marzouki, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. To begin, 2 years since the revolution, are you satisfied with the direction that Tunisia has taken in this time?
I can say that Tunisia is luckier than many other countries, because, first of all, because the price of revolution was not that high. Yes, of course, we have had about 300 people, martyrs, you know. We have more than 2,000 people who have been wounded during the revolution. But when you compare to Syria or even to Egypt or to Libya, you see that this price was not so high. And I can say that 2 years after, still we have some problems, but the level of violence is not that high too. Some people say, what did you achieve in 2 years? I can say that we have freedom of expression, freedom of association. We have had fair elections for the first time. Tunisians feel free here in their country. They feel proud of what they have achieved. But the road is still the way. I would say that the most important thing is to achieve, because the main reason for this revolution is social and economic, and there we are far from our objective, because it takes time. It's much more complex, much more difficult than to have the. It's very easy, to have political freedoms, because overnight you can say it. You have your freedom of expression, and it's okay. But saving 2 million of Tunisians from poverty, that takes a long.
And there still seems to be a great degree of frustration and anger. At the end of last year, you went to Sidi Bouzid to commemorate the death of the man that sparked off the revolution and were chased away by angry crowds. Was that a reflection of a public discontent, or was that a kind of isolated incident where frustrations came into the open?
I think the level of frustration is very, very high, because the level of expectation also were very high. People thought that after the revolution, the way of life they would change, and that we have jobs and everything. And now we are trying to explain to the whole population in Tunisia that it's not that easy, that we can have, as I told you, political freedoms, and we can change the political system, and we can have election. That's very easy, and we did this. But saving millions of Tunisians from poverty, that takes time. And this is what, and we have to explain to our population that now, for the first time, they don't have a corrupted regime. For the first time in this country, they have people really who are extremely interested in promoting human rights, social and economic rights in this region and so forth. But political will is not enough. We lack resources, we lack time, we lack expertise, and this takes time. But I'm repeating every day to the population that really we are on the track, but it takes time to achieve our goals. And I can understand the frustration of the youth. I can understand that they say, "Hi, we are waiting for more than 2 or 3 decades, and now we want everything." But yes, you want everything now. I wanted it too, but we have to accept that reality is much more complex, and that we are not gods. We cannot do miracles. All what we can do is to say we should work hard to achieve these objectives.
When you last spoke to Al Jazeera nearly a year ago, one of the things you said, and I quote, "Sometimes I have a kind of nightmare thinking that we can have a new revolution coming from the same areas, and probably we could have dead or wounded in demonstrations." Do you still have that kind of nightmare?
Course. Yes, of course. I still have this. But I would say that we have had many crises in this country during last years, and really those crises were extremely dangerous for the stability of the country. But after each crisis, Tunisia, first of all, we could avoid it, to have this level of violence extremely dangerous for the country, and we succeeded in solving the crisis. And this is why I'm much more confident in Tunisian capacity of, overcoming all these political issues. Yes, I still have this fear, but Tunisia is much more stable now. Last year we had so many incidents, hundreds of incidents. Now we have less incidents, and I'm quite sure that we will, after this election, probably in June, we will achieve the transition. We will have the constitution. We will have a new government, a new president, and so forth. And then Tunisia would be on the track, and we would be able to tackle the social and economic problems more seriously. Because in transitional period, you have to solve so many problems, political, social, and so forth. And the government is not able, to solve all this problem just because it's a transitional government. The problem of Tunisia is we have had 2 years of transition, and during the 2 years of transition, the government is a weak government, because the bureaucracy would wait, and the investment would wait, and everything would wait. But if we succeed in achieving this transitional period, if we have this election, as I hope in June, then Tunisia would be on the track with a new constitution, a new government, a new president, more stability, and then we would be able to tackle the social and economic problems.
Many have argued that Tunisia is struggling between those who operate off secular impulses and those who operate off religious ones. Basically a battle between these two parties for the very nature, the very soul of the state. Is this oversimplified, do you believe? Is it more complex than that?
It's much more complex, but in fact, we do have two parts of the society. We have traditional part of the society, conservative, religious, and we have a very modern society, a very modern westernized part of the society in Tunisia. And those two parts, the first part of Tunisia is afraid for its, the social and economic problems. The poorest part of the country, their main problem is how to improve their social and economic situation. And they are very frightened that the revolution would lead to nothing, and that they were poor before revolution, they would stay poor after the revolution. The other part of Tunisia is quite different. They are afraid for that way of life. They are afraid of having Sharia law. They are afraid of having religious schools, and of being obliged, for instance, to wear burqa and so forth. There are a lot of phantasma about this. Seeing a new Tunisia like another Islamist country like Afghanistan or so forth. So my problem is to say to the first part of Tunisia, hey, really we are going to improve your social and economic situation, because once again you don't have a corrupted regime. Once again, this regime is extremely serious about promoting this region and so forth. And I'm saying to the other part of Tunisia, hey, don't worry about human rights and women's rights. Don't forget that I am a human rights activist, and that will do everything to protect your rights, to protect your way of life, because it's mine, you know. So if I succeed in, you know, reassuring this part of Tunisia and this other part of Tunisia, I think this it would be easier for them. This is what I'm talking all the time to be sure that we have to Tunisia, and they don't share they have the same problem, that they don't share the same fears, you know.
Now, the glue that should hold the society together is, of course, its constitution.
The constitution.
There is a draft constitution in place now, which importantly does not make reference to Sharia religious law as a basis of legislation. How important is that in terms of balancing these
Extremely
parties?
important, because we do know that this constitution is, if we don't reach a consensus about this constitution, it would be the constitution of one part of the society and would be rejected from other part of the society. So we have had hours, days and nights about discussion about how to reach a consensus. And this is why I'm confident in Tunisia, because here in this country, you know, people used to talk and discuss, and after all, they reach a consensus on very, very difficult and very complicated issues. Yes, we reached a consensus about Sharia law. Yes, we reached a consensus about the equality men and women. We reached a consensus about the kind of regime. It wouldn't be a parliamentary system, nor presidential system, but something mixture, so forth. And I think this constitution would be accepted by the two Tunisia, you know. And this is why I say that after this transitional period, we would have a stable country, because the constitution would be accepted by both parts of the society, by all the political parties, by the civil society, and so this would probably strengthen Tunisia and give us the opportunity to tackle the social and economic problems. Once again, our main problems, we have to finish the political discussion just because we have to tackle those social and economic problems.
As an activist, though, where is the line? Where does the right, for example, to wear what you want to begin? And where does the right to say that offends my religious sensibilities end? Is there a line, and how can that line be drawn to keep that balance between people's rights and privileges?
Well, this has been discussed not only this year, but you know, in Tunisia we have had this discussion for more than 3 decades. You know, I have been before being president of Tunisia, I have been chair of the Human Rights League, and within the Human Rights League, we used to have Islamists, we used to have secularists, we have the communists, nationalists, and so forth, and we have the discussion for more than 20 or 30 years. And this is why the situation now is easier in Tunisia, because the people who are discussing these issues for 3 decades, now they are in power, and then this is why the discussions are easier than in other parts. And everybody knows who are the red line for the other parts. So I do know that, let me give an example, you know, I'm against the death penalty, you know. When I arrived here in this palace, I found a list of 220 people who have sentenced to death, and Ben Ali didn't dare, you know, to execute them or to release them. And I said, look, we will never have a death penalty here in Tunisia de facto, but I know that it's a red line for the Islamists. I cannot put it on the constitution, you know. So they know that I will never accept death penalty here in Tunisia. They were not asking that people, you know, be hanged and so forth, but I cannot ask also to put on the constitution that death penalty is prohibited in Tunisia. No. This is the way we are reaching this consensus. I know where is your red line, you know where is my red line, and we try you know, to reach a consensus that be acceptable for both parts. For women's rights also the same thing. Of course, I would like that we can write down on the constitution that men and women are extremely, you know, or equality is total, is complete. But you cannot write down this in constitution because it would mean that Tunisian women would be able to marry Christians or Jews or so forth. This would be a problem. So we would write down in the Constitution that equality is the principle of a relationship between men and women and so forth. We stop there. They understand what I mean. I understand what they mean. We cannot do if we want if every political party want to impose its point of view, then it will collapse.
Is there a danger, though, that too much compromise creates a flappy constitution?
No, because I remember when I was chair of the Human Rights League, but we have discussion about the Islamists at that moment. They said, look, we are against four articles, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I remember that it was death penalty, equality between men and women. What else? Freedom of faith, that you can renounce to be Muslim and become Christian and so forth. And they said, look, we do not agree about 4 articles, but how many articles are in the declaration, Universal Declaration? They say 30. So I said, we agree about 26. And we are different about 4, but we agree on 26. They said, yes. I said, let's work on the 26 and let's forget about the 4 others, because the most important for that country at the time was freedom of expression, freedom, etc., etc. This is the way we are doing here in Tunisia. We try to focus on how can I say it? On the issues we agree on, and I think they're more numerous and they're more important than the issues we do not agree.
Just to return briefly to something that you said talking to Al Jazeera last year, you were asked when there would be parliamentary and presidential elections. You said next year we need 1 more year. The month you suggested could be April 2013. Obviously this timetable has shifted now. You're mentioning now a different date for those elections.
Let's say 2 or 3 months, it won't be catastrophe. We are quite sure that we're going to have this election between June and October. This would be probably the period where we are going to have this election. So myself, I'm extremely, I would like now to hurry up the process, because as I told you, we are suffering because this is a transitional period and the government is weak government, even if you have strong people in this government, because it's transition, it's a weak government, cannot take this decision. Once again, the bureaucracy is waiting and the investment is waiting. This is why I say it's extremely urgent for us to have these elections, but we have to face technical problems, so I expect the election to be, as I told you, between June and October. It's not a catastrophe.
Now, Tunisia's place in the global community as it develops. You mentioned many incidents last year, one of which, a very serious one, was an attack on the US embassy.
Of course.
Was this a reflection of anti-Western sentiment, or was it an isolated incident created by particular circumstances at a particular time?
This was probably the most important crisis this country. We have had, as I told you, we have 3 or 4 crises, and this was one of the most important, because really it was extremely dangerous for the image of Tunisia. Mainly for the image of Tunisia, of course, for our relationship with the United States. What people must know is that the Salafists here in Tunisia is really a tiny minority within a tiny minority, but they are very harmful, because when I asked the Minister of Interior how many of them we have here in Tunisia. He said, Mr. President, probably not more than 3,000. 3,000 on a population of 10 million, and they are not working they are not playing any political role, they are not in the Constituent Assembly, they don't have a political party, but they are very harmful because for the image, the press wouldn't talk about what we are achieving, but they would talk about an attack against a tourist or so forth. So now the problem is how to deal with this phenomena, because you have it in the West. They have their extremists, they have their racists. In the United States, in all society, you have this kind of people, violent and extremist and so forth. First, I can assure you that it's a minority within a minority. They are harmful for the image, but not for the stability of the country, and we're trying to deal with this problem. But don't forget that myself and the Prime Minister, we have been victims of massive human rights violation, and so we have to be very careful about dealing this problem, to deal with this problem, to remain within the framework of human rights, the respect of human rights. At that time, to have to take decisions, sometimes tough decisions, to arrest and so forth. But it's not a danger for Tunisia, and we are dealing with this problem. And our American friends, they understood what happened, and they knew that it didn't reflect the population, the feeling of the population, nor the political will of the government.
So, to what extent is Tunisia a template for development in the rest of the region? You mentioned in a speech to the United Nations that it's like a laboratory.
Yes, Tunisia is a laboratory. We are the constitution. The constitution we are trying to write down would be a new attempt how to make Tunisia stick to the human rights values with the framework within respecting respecting Islam, being respectful of Islam without having Sharia law as the principal source of legislation. This is the first problem. The second is how to have a government representing the two forces, the two parts of Tunisia. And you know that the Troika now is partly formed by moderate Islamist and moderate secularist. This is also a new way of governing an Arab country, And the third experimentation about having a constitution where you have a balance between power. We don't want a parliamentary regime because we have had a parliamentary regime here in Tunisia, and it shifted to dictatorship. Dictatorship of the most important political party, and we don't have a presidential also regime because we have experienced that the fact that it could shift to the dictatorship. How to have a new political system that prevent Tunisia from having a new dictatorship coming from a president or a prime minister. Really, we are thinking very hard about all those issues, and I think many countries in the Arab world, Libya, Syria, even Egypt and so forth, can learn about our experience. We can also learn from their experience, but what is quite sure is that in the whole Arab world now, people are thinking about a new political system, about how to do politics, how to unite a divided society and so forth. This is why I think Tunisia is a good lab.
You mentioned Egypt very quickly, and yet things appear to have gone not quite as smoothly there, and the issue would appear to be precisely the one that you have mentioned here, and that is the clash between not just cultures, but between the secular, the fundamentally religious.
This is what we want to avoid here in Tunisia. I think, we have to accept that our society is complex, our society is divided, our society is pluralistic, and we have to accept this and to build our political system on this basis that we have and we will have a pluralistic society, divided society, and we have to reach a consensus about how to unite this very different part of the society. Otherwise, it would be a kind of, I wouldn't say civil war, but a political war. Very harmful for economics, very harmful for stability, and very harmful for the image of the country.
Finally, you talk about consensus. Is this a consensus of moderates in the end, regardless of religious or political belief?
Yes, of course. Yes, we are reaching this consensus. As I told you, it's not. We have this kind of discussion about consensus for more than 3 decades here in Tunisia. What we see now is the result of all these very, very long and very fruitful discussions.
President Marzouki, thank you very much
It's
for
my
talking to
pleasure.
Al Jazeera.
Thank you.